Crimson Desert is the most flawed masterpiece that I've ever played, and after more than 120 hours with the game, I am ready to give you guys my final thoughts. Real quick, if this format seems weird, it's because this video was originally intended to be a TikTok, but it just ran too long, hence why I'm here. If I had to summarize my feelings in one sentence, I'd say that Crimson Desert is an absolutely amazing game despite constantly being at odds with itself from a design perspective. Throughout the history of video games, unbridled ambition has often resulted in a game feeling underwhelming or half-baked. Crimson Desert, on the other hand, thrives in its ambition and even ends up feeling overwhelming at times, even if it does still feel a little half-baked around the edges. In so many ways, this game feels like the natural evolution of the open world game. The map design is absolutely astounding, with every nook and cranny oozing with hyper-individualized, hyper-stylized personality. It feels like Pearl Abyss took a look at Bethesda and said, "Hold my beer." This is especially impressive considering the fact that the game's map is incomprehensibly big. To have such size and scale while maintaining industry-leading design and attention to detail, it's truly awe-inspiring. Every square inch feels jam-packed with things to do and things to discover, but the developers are also okay with keeping those things completely hidden from the inattentive eye, meaning it's very easy to come away from this game feeling like the open world is empty. It's not, but I wouldn't blame you for thinking so. Now, I didn't get any footage of it, unfortunately, but for example, there are these ruins where, if you climb up and force palm the middle of this seemingly normal wall, you'll find that it's a false door with treasure behind it. This sort of thing is crazy easy to miss, and there are so many examples just like it. Once you know what to look for, though, the exploration is truly amazing. That same principle, that this game is great, but only if you know exactly what you're doing, runs throughout this game's very DNA. Take the combat, for example. The combat in Crimson Desert is absolutely amazing, probably some of my favorite combat ever in an open world game. But I wouldn't blame you for thinking the combat is shallow or that the combat sucks. In 99% of combat encounters, you can win by simply holding the right bumper and occasionally dodging or parrying. Outside of a few very hard encounters, there is virtually no incentive to explore the systems, and since the game rarely tells you about the different combos you can pull off, the combat is heavily restricted by your own natural creativity. Once you do explore though, you'll find that the combat is incredibly deep, rich, and rewarding. I don't know what possessed them to include professional wrestling moves in a game like this, but as a lifelong fan of WWE, I am so thankful they did. There is nothing more fun than RKOing a dude through a scaffolding in the middle of a full-on war. But again, that same idea, that mechanics are only good if you know how to properly interact with them, extends to the game's puzzles. There is this one puzzle type that I found incredibly rewarding, but I would have been completely lost if it weren't for the internet. This puzzle has the player cross-reference a map they find on a wall, then mark those locations on the in-menu map, then go out into the world to find those locations to gain knowledge to then bring back to the puzzle location to solve the puzzle. Once you know what you're doing, these puzzles are truly amazing because they push you to explore the world and interact with it in a way that you previously might have never done. The issue is that, 1, most game puzzles give you the tools needed to solve the puzzle in the immediate vicinity. 2, the maps on the walls in these dungeons are super worn down and often hard to read. And 3, the in-menu map is incomprehensibly big. When you look at the topography on the in-game map, a lot of it looks so similar, so it can be very hard to pinpoint these places. When you take all of this into consideration, it can be really easy to think that the symbols on the map on the wall might be a riddle of some sort, if you recognize it as a map at all. It's not intuitive to cross-reference your map and go to these locations, but once you do, it's incredibly rewarding. Again, the same idea can be applied to Crimson Desert's story. The basic plot is okay, even good at times, but it's implemented terribly. The lore is shallow, characters are barely introduced, the story feels jumpy, and even though some of this is canonically explained, you can never shake the feeling that the story is just poorly designed and executed. The one saving grace here is that most people won't come to Crimson Desert for the story. They'll come for the gameplay, and the gameplay is pretty damn amazing. Then there are some of the side mechanics, like the Gray Main Camp. The Gray Main Camp is an awesome feature where you can upgrade the camp, recruit members, set up trade routes, decorate a house, farm, ranch, set up dispatch missions, and way more. The camp is really fun in a lot of ways and does a great job at connecting Cliff and the Greymanes to the wider world, but it too has a lot of issues. Namely, that locked behind it are some of the game's greatest features, like character customization, and that it takes so long to unlock these mechanics. It can easily take you 30 hours to unlock farming and another 10 to unlock character customization. And at that point, depending on when you started upgrading the camp, you could easily be approaching the end of the game. That wouldn't be such a big deal if the end game weren't so barren, and this is one of my biggest issues with the game. For a game with so much to do, there is a shocking lack of content once you clear out enemy bases and finish the main story. And this is an issue for so many reasons, but the big ones are camp upgrades, the dragon mount, and the side characters Damien and Unka. First, let's wrap up the thoughts on the camp. Because it can take so long to upgrade the camp, by the time you can customize your character, you could have very little reason to bring that new character out into the world. Not only that, but the final camp upgrade can't be executed until after you finish the story, which again can leave you with very little incentive to see it through. Which sucks because that final upgrade is awesome. I don't want to spoil anything, but I think it's sick. This same issue extends to the dragon mount though. Like many people, you may have been attracted to Crimson Desert due to the sick dragon you saw in all the promotion materials. And by all means, the dragon is sick. It's awesome flying over the map, burning down bandit camps, and feeling like the prince who was promised. But you don't unlock the dragon until one of the final chapters of the game, when the world is practically barren. Not only that, but the dragon has a 1-hour cooldown, meaning that you may only get to fly the dragon like 5 times before the map becomes completely devoid of enemies. What you end up with is one of the game's biggest selling points turning into something of a nothing burger by the time you actually unlock it. Then there's the one that really grinds my gears. The other 2 characters, Damien and Unka. The inclusion of these characters introduces so much unnecessary frustration, and it's ultimately confusing why they're here at all. For some of the strongest bosses in the game, it could take some gamers nearly 100 Abyss cores to make Cliff strong enough to withstand the enemy's onslaught of attacks. It is very hard to acquire 100 Abyss cores, especially the closer you get to the end when there aren't as many enemies. The issue here is that the Abyss cores aren't shared across characters, meaning that while Cliff may feel like a walking weapon of mass destruction, Unka and Damien may feel powerless by comparison. This is particularly frustrating because multiple times will the game force you to play as these underlevel characters for a boss fight. Even if you decide to explore with these characters and beef them up, you'll soon hit another wall. Much of this game's content is locked to them, making their exploration feel far less rewarding by comparison to Cliff. For all 3 of these points, camp upgrades, dragon riding, and side character building, you may be thinking the solution is to just do the main story before exploring, but that's going to be damn near impossible for most people. Some of the hardest fights in this game, be it large-scale battles or late-game bosses, are a part of the main story, meaning it's in your best interest to level up before doing them. That's what makes it so confusing that some of the game's best parts are locked behind story progression. But then there are so many small things that the game does well. Like, for example, the ability to watch statues get erected when you order their construction via the dispatch missions, or the inclusion of a living economy and how the game allows you to invest in the stock market, or how the game allows you to ride a sick legendary mount like a wolf or a bear, or how the game's traversal is consistently satisfying. And what you end up with is a game that's equal parts profoundly confusing and incomparably fun. I could see how someone would look at Crimson Desert and think that the way to improve this game would be to scale it back, pull some features to flesh the rest out. But I disagree. I think size is Crimson Desert's biggest strength, and it's just overall design that's a weak point for Crimson Desert. I think if this game had 2 more years of development focused around refining the overall design, it would be much better. But that brings me to my final point. Pearl Abyss is already standing head and shoulders above the rest of the industry with how quickly they're responding to feedback and implementing updates. Since reviewers got their hands on the game, there have already been 4 major updates addressing some of the community's biggest complaints. Pearl Abyss clearly wants to see this game thrive, and they are putting in the care and the hard work to make that dream a reality. I think that it is completely within the realm of possibility that most of my complaints will be tweaked or patched out in the near future, but that doesn't change how fun the game is today. Today, as it stands, Crimson Desert is one of the most fun open world games you can get your hands on, if nothing else due to its combat, gorgeous open world, and amazing exploration. But despite how fun the game is, it's also within the realm of possibility that Pearl Abyss will update it to becoming an all-time great within the coming months. For that reason, I do strongly recommend Crimson Desert today, keeping in mind the issues that it does have, but even more strongly, I recommend checking out Crimson Desert after a few months of updates. What do you think of Crimson Desert? Let me know down in the comments, let's talk about it, and just remember, content like mine wouldn't be possible without viewers like you. Thank you.